everybody, to the Almost Sideways Sideshow. We are here deep diving Band of Brothers, episode by episode. I am your host, Terry Plucknett, and joining me is Adam Daly. Adam, how's it going?
It's good. I can't find my scissors anywhere. Do you have scissors? Where's my scissors?
You need some morphine, too?
I do. I'm low over here, man. I might have an issue here.
Yeah.
We'll make it through, though. We'll power through it.
Yes, because we are deep diving this time, episode 6, Bastongne.
Bastongne.
And this is when this episode is really when stuff gets crazy. And you see you think Easy Company has been through a lot, right? They paratroop into Normandy behind the line, and you know, they had to deal with you know, Ross from Friends and all this stuff. So you think they've been through a lot. Well, they haven't been through anything until they have to go through the Battle of the Bulge. And for some reason, and this is the crazy part about this, and it's a true story, and if it wasn't true, you wouldn't believe it, that you had one company of men that were on the front line of every important battle in the European theater during World War II. Right? They jump into D-Day. They do this. They do that. They do it all. And now we see them as the main group in the Battle of the Bulge, surrounded by the Germans, by the enemy, and they've got to try and work their way out. So that's what we're looking at this episode. Before we get too deep into this, make sure you subscribe, rate, review wherever you can find the podcast, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, there you go, all of them there. Pandora, Spotify, anywhere else you find your podcasts. Also, make sure you check us out on YouTube if you have not done so. Adam, talk about YouTube stuff.
Yeah, YouTube is where we're dropping all these video formats of the reviews. We love to see your comments in the comments section. Make sure you leave them there, your thoughts, your takes, your opinions on the show. Also, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell notification so you can stay up to date whenever we drop some more content. Really excited. We just passed 350 subscribers, and we're looking for 400 and more. So really excited.
Yeah, so let's talk about Bastongne. And we can't talk about Bastongne in this episode without talking about the focus of the episode. Every episode has its focus. And this one, he's been around. He's kind of been in the periphery. I've been mentioning to you, Adam, your first time watch here.
Yep.
Whenever he pops up, I'm like, you're going to hear more about Doc Rowe. You're going to hear more about Doc Rowe. And here it is. This episode is completely about Doc Rowe. As they go through this time in the winter of 1944 in Bastongne. And the first thing that stood out to me was the opening montage of the actual members of Easy Company and some of the stuff they were talking about. And you can tell, yeah, they did Normandy. Yeah, they did all this stuff. Bastongne was the most traumatic experience of their lives.
Yeah,
and
I'm not back as Bastongne right now. Jeez, it's free.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's whenever it gets cold. The one guy says, whenever it gets cold, I always tell my wife, at least I'm glad I'm not in Bastongne. That's always something he says. And then you had the one guy who mentioned that a guy got his arm blown off, and he was running around, and all he had to say was, "Get my wristwatch off my arm." I mean, this is a crazy, crazy dramatic time. And at the center of it for this episode, we have Doc Rowe, the medic for Easy Company. What were some things about Doc Rowe as you watched this episode that stood out to you, or just some moments that really stood out to you from Bastongne?
Well, I think you got to go with the MVP of the episode, Doc Rowe here. He is the guy you're focusing on, and just seeing him journey from foxhole to foxhole, interacting with people, looking for his scissors. I make a joke of it, but yeah, those are important things if you don't have them, and the morphine and everything to take care and do it so he can do his job, and him communicating with all these different soldiers there. I think that is some of the more fascinating stuff, and not just with the soldiers, but also the nurse too in Bastongne. Very important relationship. I feel like there gives some humanity to the people of that town, country, in the country they're in. So it's nice to see some interaction with some of the people there too. Unfortunate what happened to her, but Doc Rowe is definitely one of those people that you're kind of drawn to, and I'm glad they focused the whole episode. I know you hinted at it, but I'm glad that this is one of the episodes that, man, I did not want to be there. I do not want to visit. It looks too dang cold. I actually felt like some stuff actually does certain, like The Revenant was one of those movies that actually I felt how cold it was there. I felt how cold it was in my room, and I'm like, it's like 70 plus degrees where I'm living right now, and I'm like, I felt cold watching this episode here, and it was kind of a miserable watch in that sense, because I felt for these guys, and having Doc Rowe go through this episode and seeing the brutal wounds that these soldiers had, it just some of the most haunting visual moments so far up to this point in the show, I think. So Bastongne, very, very good episode. One of the better ones up to this point for me. Probably the best one that I've watched, to be honest, up to this point anyway. So great, but powerful and traumatic episode for me.
You mentioned the nurse, and I find the nurse one of the most fascinating characters throughout the entire series, because you have this person who is in the fight but not in the army, kind of
not in the fight though.
In the periphery here, that you get this instant connection that she and Doc Rowe have, and they support each other, they work with each other, they help each other, and she is one of just those pure, genuine characters, and that just grounds him and helps him focus, and it makes what happens to her so heartbreaking. And that moment where he pulls that scarf out of the rubble is just it's just one of the most heart-wrenching moments of the entire show, because she was so pure. Right, she was just this like saintly woman who just wanted to be there and to help. And if things had gone differently, that they probably would have ended up together at some point. But that's not how it goes.
Definitely not. Yeah, I will say that I think focusing on her so much that this episode it actually gave more kind of realization that this wasn't just about the good guys and the bad guys fighting each other and having all the casualties happen during this big war, but also they're in a country where people are actually living too. We saw a couple moments in the show so far where the people who inhabit this place are there, like that once the city they go through, and all the military is being celebrated, and they're condoning the people that had relations with the Germans, and also the boy with the chocolate bar. Some really kind of standout moments. However, they never actually focused on one particular and gave her that kind of like that human connection where you're very like, oh, you can relate to her and actually felt more compassion towards her. So it made it like the big impact at the end of it even more traumatic, I felt too. So it's like, oh man, you got a little more backstory than any other character up to that point. That wasn't in this company that we've seen and followed so far.
Well, and especially since she's back in the town, right? She's supposed to be outside the fight, and it's just they end up getting bombarded by the end of it. Another great moment I thought with Doc Rowe was when you see the group of soldiers going into combat. They're going to go kind of see where the line is. They were expecting some fire. And you see this shot of Doc Rowe squatting up against a tree as the snow is falling down around him, and he's just sitting there waiting for the gunshots and for someone to yell medic. That has to be one of the loneliest, most helpless feelings of any experience you could have. Knowing I am just sitting here waiting for someone to be on their deathbed. And then I'm going to run out into the middle of all the chaos and take care of it. But I have to stay back here and let it all happen first.
Yeah. Talk about what some of the bravest, like, military are very brave people, but military medics, they're sitting there waiting to run out into where they're literally where somebody got wounded at. Like that. Talk about this guy with big cojones. That's basically what these medics are. That I could never imagine that. That's wow.
Well, and especially Doc Rowe at this point is not a very well supplied medic. He has a lot of
Yeah,
interactions
no.
with the other medics, like, all right, what do you have? This is what I have. They're exchanging stuff. That's how he first meets the nurse, because he gives her, or she gives him some
Bunch of
supplies.
stuff, yeah.
And everyone's kind of not well supplied at this point. And you even have the General McCullough come out to them, and they go through and say, okay, we don't have this, we don't have this, we don't have this. Our line is stretched too thin. People are walking. I mean, the first scene is Doc Rowe accidentally walks across the line into a German camp and has to turn and walk away. Hopefully not that they don't see him, because the lines are stretched so far that nobody knows where the line actually is. And the general's only response is, keep trying. I got nothing for you. Just hold the line. That's all I can tell you. So at one of these interactions, as he's trying to get more supplies, is with the one, the only, the infamous Lieutenant Dyke, who he finds sleeping in his foxhole while everyone else is working. And he says, and it's one of the great lines of the episode. Doc says, do you have any bandages? You still have your first aid kit, right? Do you have any bandages? And he's like, what happens if I get hit? He goes, I'll be there.
Dyke,
I'll help you. The guy who runs as far away from anything bad as possible. Foxhole Norman as he is, then what are they gonna? He's all concerned. No, I can't give the medic some extra supplies because I, the lieutenant, might end up getting hit, and I will need a Band-Aid.
I'm telling you, I said this last episode. He gets the title, and all of a sudden he gets this. His head, his ego inflates a little bit, and that's what I feel with Dyke. He thinks he's far superior. He's not. That's it's a frustrating guy. Definitely one of the LVPs of the show.
He's got some good moments in it, and we'll talk about it more next episode because it gets worse. But there's the moment where he walks up and Doc Rowe is getting some supplies from the other medic. And he's, 2 medics in one hole? What if you guys get hit? Then we don't have any medics. And it's like, dude, calm down. And at the same time, he's calling for Lipton to show him where his foxhole is because he has no idea where he is. He is just the most clueless guy out there. Let's see here. Did I have any other Dyke moments? I think those are all the main ones I have.
I do.
Here.
I have. I have to go check out with my leaders' correspondence. I'll be back. You guys, you can handle the episode for a little bit. I'm gonna go and go over here. Okay. I'm back now. Okay. Good.
Yeah, he's never around when you need him.
That was the most annoying part. He's like, "Yeah, well, I'm gonna go. You got this, right? You guys are good. Okay, I'll see you. Bye."
And that happens a lot more once we get to episode 7. But yeah, it's just kind of, it's just ridiculous. Another unsung hero I noticed from this episode is someone that and I never noticed it before, but it's someone we've met already that just has a small little part in this, and it's the chaplain. Because we get to Bastongne, and in the medic center there where the nurse is working is the same chaplain we saw out in the middle of the battlefield. Was it Carrington or what? I think it was Market Garden, where he was wandering around. It was one of the two, where he was wandering around and he was blessing the dead bodies in the battlefield. It's like, how in the world is he doing? And now he's in the middle of it again, and he's doing the same thing. It's just crazy what he does.
Was that the guy giving the last rites to people that were in the battle too?
Yeah.
So I think that was, I don't know. I think it was the mark. Yeah, it was. I think it was episode 3. But anyway, regardless, it's just cool to see him show up again in the episode. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here. One thing that's really interesting about this battle, and it's going to go back. I read the book, Band of Brothers, and one of the most fascinating moments in the book that I will always remember is he talks about when he's talking about Bastongne, he talks about it to study it. He took some former members of Easy Company to Bastongne and just to kind of
Wow.
show him around and kind of what happened. At one point it was like, okay, on this one battle we had, we were looking out onto this field here, or I think it might have been onto this town or something, and we put a gun right here, and he kicked the dirt, and a shell casing popped out. But and so it was like no
Wow.
joke, it was like right there, and they remember it that vividly that he could point out the exact spot of where they put their gun down to start
Mm,
firing. That there's still shell casings in the ground in these battlefields because of how much just carnage there was during these battles. It's
that's
just
crazy
crazy.
that he remembered that. That's and then
Mhm.
having a shell casing. Wow, I would never would have guessed that.
So while they're there, they get bombarded with shellings and just barrages of gunfire and mortars and things like that. And you start to see something emerge during this. And what you
Mm.
see emerge is when things get tough, the person who emerges as the leader of Easy Company is Lipton. And you start to see it here that there's the attack near the end where everything starts blowing up, and he's the one running around. Get in your foxholes. Get in your foxholes. We'll talk a whole lot more about Lipton in the next episode,
Yeah,
but you start to see the hints at it here, which is a great sign and something I picked up on here, knowing what's coming. And we'll, like I said, we'll talk about episode 7 soon. But Lipton is definitely emerging as a leader, and we've talked some about his natural leadership already. They spend Christmas surrounded by the enemy in Bastongne, and there's some really interesting stuff that happens on that Christmas night as they're as things are going on. You have the message Colonel Sink brings to the front line, which was an actual message where the German commander sent a message to the Allied commander and said, we'll spare their lives if you surrender. They're surrounded." And his response was, "Nuts." I just love that, and they loved it too. And the other thing that I noticed here, they're sitting in their foxholes, and all of a sudden they hear something off in the distance, and it's the German soldiers singing Silent Night. And it's one of those moments where you realize, you know, there are some things that unify us, and it's things like that. It reminded me of the story of World War I, where during they spent a Christmas during World War I in the trenches across from each other, and they all popped out into no man's land and sang Christmas carols with each other, the enemy, and for the entire night. And then dawn broke, they went back to their trenches and started firing on each other again.
wow.
But it just shows
Yeah.
that there are some things that just transcend the moment, and Christmas is one of those. Um, then you see all the officers led by Lieutenant Welch sitting around a fire. And I love that moment too. And what Nix is great for his reactions, because I thought I smelled a fire. I did smell a fire. Are you out of your mind? We're in a dell. And of course, right after that, Welch gets hit. And
Yeah.
But it's just funny that everyone is so taken back by the fact that it's Christmas that you know what? Let's just start a campfire. It's cold. We can do that.
Yeah, we can do it. Yeah, yeah. Might as well, and we'll exchange some gifts here. We'll share some stuff that we have and with each
Hmm.
other, and just kind of like enjoy the little things in life, and that's kind of what they do for those moments. And then
And then I'll send you
they,
some of my bullets. You'll send me some of your bullets, and
yeah, exactly, yeah. So enjoy the little things type of thing. So
Yeah.
it's a nice moment, and it's kind of like remember, it's like, oh man, yeah, they don't get to come home during holidays. They have to be there, and at least they can still celebrate with their family, their military family type of thing. And
Yeah.
even when it's hell, they can still kind of enjoy the little things, which is nice.
Another one of the kind of main characters that emerges from this episode is Heffron, Babe Heffron, who he's kind of just always been around. He's the other guy from Philly along with Garnier, and you get this I forget, I think it was one of his friends gets injured and he's really shook by it. Oh no, it was the one guy gets shot, and they can't get to him.
Oh yeah, he gets like
And,
shot in the.
yeah, he gets shot in the neck, and he's trying to reach him and pull him back, and the Germans are holding him down too much with fire, and they just can't get to him, and they have to leave him behind. And he was a guy who you find out later that Heffron said he told he told him he would give his stuff to his family if anything were to happen to him, and now he can't because he was behind the line. Or he was yeah, they couldn't get him.
It's a very
And
powerful. Yeah, that scene actually kind of stands out too. I'm glad you mentioned that one because I kind of would have maybe overlooked it. But yeah, that's tough because they can't do anything to get him. And he's just sitting there, wallowing in the worst pain of his life, and slowly dies right there. That sucks. I would hate that. I don't know. That feeling would be just one of the worst feelings ever.
so one of the things, yeah. One of the things I did this time through is I kept an eye out for whenever Heffron popped back up, because there's so many characters, it's easy to lose track of guys. And so that happens. I'm like, okay, so where does Heffron pop back up in this? And if you remember that at one point Doc Rowe gives some chocolate to someone, that's Heffron. And it's one of those where he shows that he's not just a medic for their physical needs, but he is paying attention to their emotional needs as well, and knows what he just went through. And he's like, you know what, you need something to reset you, and maybe a piece of chocolate will do it. So he has the chocolate bar he got from the nurse, and he gives him a piece and says, here, eat this, you need this. He ends up sleeping in the foxhole with him. He's the one who ends up in the foxhole with Buck, and they're talking about like the barbarian invasions of Rome and stuff like that. And they talk about, one of the interesting things about Doc Rowe is he never calls anyone by their nickname. He calls them by their last name. He calls them by their title. They call it private. He calls Babe Heffron.
Yeah.
He doesn't call him Babe. He said, and that was the part where he goes, he called me Edward once. He goes, Edward? He's like, yeah, that's my name, Edward. And I think it's Buck that goes, you don't look like an Edward to me. but it all leads up to that moment at the end where he actually does call him Babe.
Yeah.
And
nice.
it's like, hey, you called me Babe. Like, Babe,
yeah.
Heffron, watch the line.
Yeah.
But it was, that moment was a reset for Heffron, but it was also a reset for Doc, because he was definitely getting fatigued by everything that was going on. And now in that moment is when he tears the blue scarf too to wrap his hand.
Yeah, you could see kind of the weight that was going on, because he was feeling the lack of supplies, but also the not so lack of injuries that were amounting with his company. So he's like, there are so many things I can't even really do. And I wanted to mention this, the bone marrow scene when they had to hook him up in like the jar of bone marrow, and they had to like hook him up, and they carried him back into the town. I was like, holy cow! I never seen that before, like done. I was like, that was pretty cool. That was just him. But after that, you can just kind of see him slowly kind of feel fatigued and weighed down by like this insurmountable amount of injuries too. It's just, Yeah, but then he kind of resets himself, like you said, and kind of like, okay, I'm good to go now. I needed a moment, and now kind of just reset myself. So
Yeah,
it's
well,
good to
and
see.
he's out of it for a little bit too. There, like when Welch gets hurt, he basically has to be drug out of his foxhole just to get
Hmm.
to him and help out. But
Yeah.
yeah, a fascinating character, and this is really a character study of what happens when you are at your lowest and how do you get out of it. And it's great to see just kind of how that works.
Yeah.
This
Exactly.
episode. Any last thoughts on this one?
No, I actually I would like to rewatch this one actually pretty after we're talking about it and seeing pick up on the more stuff like actually sooner than the other ones. I don't know. I really think like this episode a lot. I think it's because of Ro is such an interesting character and also the little interactions he had. Um, as of now, this is probably my favorite episode. I think they
Mm,
from here on out, they're. I feel like the show has really turned the table for me, where I thought it was a pretty good show, and I was liking the first time watch, but it was nothing that kind of blew me away watching it so many years after. But this episode kind of made it like, wow, they found their stride at this point. Like it was a really good, but now it's like now they're stepping up their game. And the spoiler, I have seen the other couple episodes up for now, so I know that they have found their stride. They stepped up their game to me watching the show. So I definitely appreciate Bastongne in this episode. So
yeah, this is it. This is an episode that if you were probably to poll people, this one would be given as probably the favorite episode of most people.
mm,
Just because Doc Rowe is such a great character, and because it's talking about Battle of the Bulge, and
mhm.
that's such an iconic battle too. Uh, and I love the postscript at the end of this one where
Yeah,
it said the history tells the story that General Patton comes in with his tanks and rescues the 101st Airborne from being surrounded. No member of the 101st Airborne ever said they needed rescuing. And
yeah.
it is just that and it comes up again later, but it's no one said they needed to be rescued. I always
And
thought
these
that
two
was
guys on this podcast will not say they needed rescuing from Patton either. We
no,
won't say
no,
that.
no, not at all. Let's see here. So a couple other just little side notes. Oh, I love the line. They're in line to get food at one point, and and I forget what the setup for the line is. I think it's Muck that's talking, and someone says something goes, I won't eat malarkey. I just thought it's like
Because we know
you're not
Malarkey's a
gonna,
character too.
yeah, you're not gonna eat. Oh no, it was like they were asking malarkey. It's like you're not gonna eat malarkey. It's like no, I'm not gonna eat
Oh,
malarkey, or something like that.
there we go. Yeah, totally.
I thought that was funny. And then when Rose talking to the nurse and he mentions that his grandmother is a Cajun healer
Mm,
in Louisiana, I always thought that was interesting, and it kind of shows some of why Roe has the mindset he has towards what he does. I thought that was kind of interesting.
pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I didn't pick up on that line, so that's pretty. That's actually pretty fascinating.
Yeah. All right. So that is Bastongne, episode 6. So we will be back at you very soon with another episode. Continue following along, continue watching along with us. Episode 7 coming out soon. Until then, enjoy.